The Bearcats dominate to start 2025. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Pilot Point Football Show as the Bearcats beat Bonham 56-3. And what this was a true dominating performance all around. Of course, holding Bonham to 3 points, offensively rushing for 500 yards rushing, folks. Caden Davis ran for 186 yards and a touchdown. He only had 6 carries doing that. Josh Chumley, he had 45 yards, but 3 touchdowns as Pilot Point came out firing on all cylinders. And they notched their first opening season win since, 2022. And I think it was Calsburg, if I remember correctly. Which, funny enough, that's who they play this week. But before we get into all that, we want to thank our sponsor, Chance Kirby, the broker at IRIC Real Estate. If you're looking for anything around the Lake Ray Roberts area, give Chance a call, 940-300-6900. Because when it comes to your largest financial decision, why not use someone like Chance who has over a quarter century of experience? I think he told me it was like 33 years of experience selling around the Lake Ray Roberts area. So give Chance Kirby at IRIC Real Estate a call. Again, that's 940-300-6900. Also, they're doing the broadcast for the Pilot Point Bearcats this year. And they do a wonderful broadcast. I was watching a little bit of their Bonham game Saturday. Also, they have some old games they'll post up. I was watching not too long ago the 98 Pilot Point at Salina. Me and Grant were talking. Grant, of course, my 3A host, Sideline to Sideline. You can watch every week on YouTube. We have an ad during the Pilot Point broadcast, and we do love that. But we were having a discussion about that game, and so we went and looked at it and stuff, and we were having fun watching a little bit of that. So they have the best broadcast, I think, going at the 3A level, or one of the best broadcasts. And you can find them on YouTube at Pilot Point Bearcats Insider. And it is, again, one of the most polished broadcasts in the lower levels. I'd even put it up against some of the 5As and 6As of Texas when it comes to video broadcast. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, it's the head coach of the Pilot Point Bearcats, Coach Chad Wall, right here on the Pilot Point Bearcat Football Show. Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie, and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe. Terry Bennett back here on the Pilot Point Football Show. Now joined by the head coach of the Bearcats, Coach Chad Worrell. And, Coach, congratulations. You start the 2025 season off with a victory, 56-3 over Bonham. What were your thoughts on the game?
I was just really, proud of our kids and pleased with, the start. We got a fast start, and that's something we didn't do. We didn't do last year when we played them. We kind of struggled early on, and we kind of hit the ground running this time, and I thought our kids played extremely hard. We made a lot of mistakes, first game mistakes with penalties especially, and some blown assignments here and there, but misalignments. But, man, our kids played hard, and that's all you can ask for.
Offensively, you run for 515 yards, but also what was impressive is the big plays, especially for touchdowns. I think you had 4 touchdowns over 20 yards or something like that. What were your thoughts on the offense?
Yeah, we hit the ground running. We had some big plays, and that's something that we kind of got better at, I think, last year as the season went on. And so to start this year out, and we felt like we've got some kids that can score and create some explosive plays. And so for them to be able to do that, it was good to see.
Defensively, you held them to 3 points. That means basically in the 2 games against Bonham, they scored a combined 10 points. You got to like how the defense played.
Yeah, they did. They rallied to the football. We created 3 turnovers, and we had a pick 6. We had 2 interceptions, one of them going back to the house for a pick 6. So, anytime you create 3 turnovers and throw them for some negatives, you're doing a good job. But we rallied to the football really well, and they had some kids that were concerned about coming in, and I thought our kids did a good job of responding to the challenge.
Well, when it's a game like this and it gets away, outside of just playing, guys who might not get a lot of playing time in the bigger games, what else can you learn from a blowout like this, or do you learn a lot?
Yeah, we're always learning. You learn about your kids, and you learn how to win. That's part of the learning curve. Whenever, this group of kids that we've got, they haven't had a whole lot of blowouts on the right end of that. And last year we really had one all year long. The year before that, they didn't have any. So this is really the second time that they've went out and what I would term, as having a blowout win. So we just had fun and enjoyed it. And, we just come out in third quarter and we were going to try to throw the ball. And then we had a few miscues there on the first drive and, ended up having to punt to them. And so we're going to continue to try to work on throwing the football. And we feel like we can do that, but that's something that we were aiming to work at in the second half and probably didn't get as much in as we wanted just because the game seemed really short there.
Well, you bring up a good point, and we talked a little bit about it last week about this group of kids and this program kind of having to relearn again. And last year, I still remember the text after the first game, and you're like, "We outplayed them, we got beat, we've got to figure that out." This is kind of that next step where you outplayed a team and you took advantage of it and won the game like you should have.
Yeah, I mean, we never really they were never in doubt Friday. I mean, I thought our kids were ready in pregame. The game wasn't too big for them. This group's been through a lot of games now. They played 12 football games last year, and so they've been through that. Last year, this time they hadn't. So just maturity is part of that. But, also the mindset of knowing, hey, when we get up 14 points or 21 points or whatever, it's not time to let off and celebrate. We're really going to stomp on the gas there and let that momentum build into more excitement. And that's just part of the learning curve that, they have to go through. But I was really pleased with the way they responded the other night when we had some success early.
All right. You're 1-0. Now you take on Callisburg at home. Callisburg beat Bowie last week, 29-27. Had to hold on there at the end. When you look at the film, what are your thoughts on the Wildcats?
Well, their size is the first thing that jumps off of at you. I mean, they're huge up front on both sides of the ball and control the offensive defensive lines. They've got a tackle that's going to, Texas State, I believe, so a Division I lineman, and he doesn't stand out in size-wise, I mean, because they're so big with the rest of them. And so I think that's the first thing. And then they're well coached. He does a great job coaching them when we played them last year. And, he comes from that Keith Wood at Hico coaching tree, and man, that staff did a great job for years. So he was raised around good coaches, and obviously he's carried that on as a head coach himself. So, they're well coached and they're big, and they went to the wing tee, which, we don't see a whole lot anymore. And you got to make sure you're reading your keys and staying disciplined and not chasing fakes and things like that, or you'll give up a trap for 60 yards. So, that presents its problems. And we didn't play well against them last year. We went in and went to their place and kind of struggled with special teams and struggled in some other areas and, got away from us kind of in the first half last year there. So I know our kids are kind of looking forward to having a shot to redo that.
Well, you talk about them moving to the wing tee. We're in an interesting era in high school football, in my opinion, where you're having so many varied offenses from week to week. As a coach, how do you prepare for each one, where one week it's a spread, the next week it's the slot tee, then the next week it's the wing tee?
Yeah, it's a challenge. I think a lot of people have kind of moved back towards what I'd say traditional offenses, and traditional meaning, when I was younger, first started coaching, and I keep hearing from coaches, other coaches at other schools that are moving back to the wing tee or other things that they feel like defenses were being able to prepare for the same offense 6 or 7 weeks in a row when they were running the spread, so they're trying to give themselves an advantage in preparation. It's definitely a challenge. It's something that, we spend more time in on the weekend and kind of have to reprogram our kids on the way we're going to attack it because it's completely different.
Do y'all change fronts depending on the offenses you're going to see?
Yeah, we can. We have several different packages. We've probably got 4 defensive front packages that we have, that we work on all the time. And so, yeah, we can definitely give different looks if we need to, but it's hard to stay in the same base defense that you're going to run against someone running empty, that you're going to play against somebody run the wing tee. So we're always trying to, be able to give different looks and hopefully slow them down a little bit.
I mean, yeah, we're in an era now where defensive playbooks are almost as big as offensive playbooks.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's even bigger than that is your personnel and your defenses, because when everyone went to like the 3-4, their personnel and 3 defensive linemen in the game, and the outside backers who are actually defensive ends against certain offenses were more secondary cover type guys. And so when you start playing a wing tee or you start playing something, then sometimes those guys are out of position just personnel wise because you may not you may not want the guy that's covering against a spread playing defensive end against a wing T. And so not only does it, make your playbook have to be a little bit bigger, it makes your personnel groups change up. And sometimes that's a bigger challenge than the fronts.
All right, last question. We haven't talked about it yet, but the sub-varsity, what's that looking like for Pilot Point this year?
The freshman team, we've got a lot of kids out this year. We've got over right now, I think we're right at 85 kids.
Wow.
So last year we were in the mid 50s, 56, 57, about this time last year. And we're at 85. So we've got a full, 2 JV teams. Our freshman group didn't get to play last week. That storm came in on Thursday and set in here and with lightning and everything. So we ended up having to cancel that game with Sanger. And our JV got a big win, over Bonham. They won, and so they're 1-0 on the season. And then our junior highs and everybody kick off this week. So our junior highs and JV will play Callisburg, and our freshman group's playing Van Alstyne. So.
Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe. Once again, I want to thank Coach Wall for joining us, as he does, of course, each and every week here on the show. Also, last week, we had a little bit of a sound issue. Did not even know about it until talking to Coach before we started the interview this morning. We always kind of catch up on what we saw over the weekend football-wise and such, and we love to talk beaches and 80s movies. But he was like, everybody's telling me I have a lisp during the coach's show, and I legitimately didn't know what he was talking about. And it turns out I was using a podcast enhancer, trying to just get rid of some of the sounds. We have a little bit of an echo in the studio because I've taken some stuff out. And so when you take things out, it the sound doesn't get absorbed as well. Just trying to make the studio a little bit more open because there's just a lot of stuff, and I'm always having to flip the studio because if you don't know, we have a high school, side, which is this sideline to sideline, our regional shows, our coaches shows, things like that. But we also have a pro and college side called Out Drink the Coverage. And so the studio is basically split right in the middle. I just flip the cameras, flip the production stuff and over. And I just wanted to clean out some area to make that, more efficient this year because we're doing more of that. And so I used the podcast enhancer, thought everything was great. Turns out it really pixelated the voices and it made all the coaches sound a little weird. It's odd because I use it in other stuff and I've never had that problem. Maybe it was just simply because it was over the phone. Something about that changed it, but I do apologize. We will not be using that enhancer again. Anyway, all right. Pilot Point 1-0. They've got Callisburg this week. I think this is going to be an interesting matchup. Last year the Wildcats had their way with Pilot Point, 37-0. It's crazy to think that this is the same team that last year, first 3 games scored a total of 6 combined points. And then this year they start off in the Bonham game with that dominating win, 56-0. I don't think they're going to get beat 37-0 this year. It will be a tough game. Do not get me wrong. I think Callisburg's a solid program this year, and I think this is a great test for the Bearcats here early in the season. If you have any questions, thoughts, or comments, you can email the show, terry@s2ssport.com. Also, once again, I want to thank Chance Kirby, the broker at IRIC Real Estate. Give him a call if you're buying anything around the Lake, Ray Roberts area, 940-300-6900. And again, also check out their Pilot Point football broadcast. Just go to YouTube at Pilot Point Bears Insider. That's Bears with an S at the end. All right. That's going to do it for week 2. That's right. Next week's already week 3 of the regular season in football. That's how quick it flies, folks. And we'll be here for that right here on the Pilot Point Football Show.